The Mississippi sun beats down hard, but some places stay in the shadows no matter how bright it gets. That's what Sarah Jenkins, an investigative journalist with more grit than cocoa people have in their whole lives, was about to discover. Her latest tip wasn't about corruption or budget fraud, it was about a ghost. A man who walked into the Mississippi State Penitentiary, known as Parchman Farm, and simply vanished. His name was Marcus Thorne, and according to official records, he was still serving his sentence. But according to a desperate, anonymous call, Marcus hadn't been seen in over 6 months. Sarah's specialty was digging where no one else dared. She started by pulling the official files. Marcus Thorne, inmate number 734, convicted of robbery, 5 years into a 10-year sentence. His records showed a few minor infractions, but nothing that would warrant solitary confinement for half a year. Everything looked clean. It was like his file was a carefully curated story, designed to be read and accepted without question. But Sarah had learned that the most polished surfaces often hide the deepest cracks. She drove out to the sprawling prison complex, a place that seemed to exist in its own pocket of time. The air felt heavy, thick with history and unspoken secrets. Her official request to interview inmates who knew Marcus was denied. Security concerns, they said. Her request to see his cell block was also turned down. Operational protocols. The wall of bureaucracy was closing in. But a source inside, a nervous guard who owed her a favor, slipped her a hand-drawn map. On it, a small, unassuming building was circled in red ink. It was labeled simply Building J. The strange part, Building J didn't exist on any official prison blueprints. It was an unofficial, uninspected, off-the-books structure. A ghost building for a ghost inmate. The guard's whispered words echoed in her mind. They take him to J. The ones they want to forget. No cameras, no logs. It's a black hole. The story was taking shape, and it was darker than anything she had ever imagined. This wasn't just a missing person case, it was a state-sanctioned disappearance. Sarah knew she couldn't break this story alone. She needed legal firepower. She needed David Chen. David was a civil rights lawyer whose office was a chaotic mess of files and righteous indignation. He'd spent his career fighting for the underdog against the giants of the justice system. When Sarah laid out the evidence of the pristine records, the stonewalling officials, the hand-drawn map, David's eyes lit up with a familiar fire. He had heard whispers about places like Building J for years, but he'd never had concrete proof. "They're running a shadow prison, Sarah," he said, his voice low and intense. "A place with no oversight, where anything can happen. If Marcus is in there, he has no rights, no protection. He's a non-person." Their partnership was forged in that moment, a fusion of journalistic tenacity and legal strategy. They had a common goal: expose Building J and find out what happened to Marcus Thorne. But as they started digging deeper, they hit a new, more formidable wall. A call from a contact in the state attorney's office delivered a bombshell. The state was moving to seal all records related to Parchman's internal operations for the past year, citing an ongoing internal review. The order would be finalized in 48 hours. 48 hours. That was their window. After that, every piece of evidence they needed, every witness they had to find, would be locked away behind a legal fortress. The clock wasn't just ticking, it was screaming. The race had begun. David immediately started filing emergency injunctions, legal Hail Marys designed to slow down the state's bureaucratic machine. His team worked around the clock, drowning in paperwork and legal precedents, trying to find a loophole, a weakness in the state's case. Meanwhile, Sarah went back to her sources. She needed someone who had been inside Building J and lived to talk about it. It was a dangerous task. People were terrified. Speaking out meant risking retaliation, not just from guards, but from a system designed to protect itself at all costs. She finally found him, a former inmate, recently released, who was living in fear. He agreed to meet her in a secluded diner late at night. His hands trembled as he recounted his time in the box, as he called it. He described a place of absolute despair. Small, windowless cells, minimal food, and a silence that was more terrifying than any noise. He hadn't seen Marcus, but he'd heard guards talking about the stubborn one, an inmate who wouldn't break, who kept demanding his rights. He was sure they were talking about Marcus Thorne. With this first-hand testimony, Sarah had the human element, the heart of the story. David had the legal angle. Now, they needed to connect the dots and prove that Marcus was, or had been, inside that building. Their 48-hour deadline was shrinking. 24 hours left. The pressure was immense. Every phone call could be a breakthrough or a dead end. Every legal filing was a gamble. Then, a stroke of luck. A junior clerk in the state's records office, wrestling with her conscience, sent David an encrypted file. It contained a single document, a maintenance request for a broken plumbing fixture in Building J. And on that request, scrawled in the notes section, were an inmate number and a date. The number was 734. Marcus Thorne's number. It was the digital footprint they needed, the undeniable link between the official system and the shadow prison. It proved that the state not only knew about Building J but was actively maintaining it, and that Marcus had been there. This was their smoking gun. But having evidence and getting it to the public were two different things. The state's sealing order was just hours away. Sarah knew a traditional news article wouldn't be fast enough. It would get bogged down in editing and legal reviews. She had to go live. She decided to use her platform to break the story in real time, a high-risk move that would bypass the gatekeepers. David would simultaneously hold a press conference on the steps of the courthouse, presenting the leaked document and the ex-inmate's testimony. With just 3 hours to go, they put their plan in motion. Sarah set up a live stream from her news station studio. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was it. The culmination of sleepless nights, dangerous meetings, and relentless digging. She looked into the camera and began to speak. Good evening. What I am about to tell you is a story the state of Mississippi does not want you to hear. It's the story of a man named Marcus Thorne and a place called Building J. As she spoke, weaving together the official lies and the hidden truths, David stood before a crowd of reporters, his voice booming with conviction. He held up the maintenance request. This document proves that the state has been operating an illegal, secret facility. They have lied to the public, and they have stripped an American citizen of his basic human rights. The story exploded. It was picked up by national news outlets within minutes. The hashtag #FindMarcusThorne started trending. The state's attempt to bury the truth had backfired, creating a firestorm of public outrage. The pressure was too much. Just before the 48-hour deadline expired, the governor's office announced an emergency session and a full, independent investigation into Parchman Farm and the existence of Building J. The sealing order was suspended. Sarah and David had won. They had dragged a dark secret into the light. The investigation that followed was a painful and shocking process. Building J was exactly as the ex-inmate had described. It was a place designed to break people. And inside one of the cells, they found evidence of Marcus Thorne's presence. His fate remains a central part of the ongoing investigation, but his disappearance is no longer a secret. The fight for justice for Marcus, and for anyone else who may have been lost in that system, is now being fought in the open. Sarah Jenkins's reporting and David Chen's legal battle didn't just uncover a conspiracy, they forced a reckoning. They reminded everyone that even in the darkest corners, the truth has a way of finding the light, as long as there are people brave enough to search for it. Their race against time was over, but the fight for accountability had just begun. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the stories that matter.